What's up, Coachable podcast listeners? I'm so excited for this episode of the Coachable podcast because I am joined by none other than Sahara Rose, who I have been following since the beginning of my journey. Sahara, like, it's crazy to actually have this conversation and be speaking to you because you've genuinely been somebody that I've known about, has been in my field for probably about 6 years at this point. And I think back to really the beginning. I mean, my awakening has had many iterations and there've been many deaths and many rebirths. But when I really think back to the beginning of having this kind of epiphany that I was living a life that I had spent so much time crafting, and an ego that I had really spent a lot of time dressing up and this idea of myself, and all of that came crashing down. And I came across your podcast. It was a podcast that you did about a quarter life crisis, I think with Christine Hassler, way back in the day, probably like 2018. And that set me on a journey. And so I'm grateful for you to spend a little bit of time today and to share a conversation about what your journey looks like right now and what's going on in your life. But yeah, for those that don't know who Sahara Rose is, she is what Deepak Chopra calls a leading voice of this generation. And I can attest to that. She has significantly played a role in my journey. She's the host of the High Self podcast, which has been one of the #1 spirituality podcasts out there with over 45 million downloads. You are an incredible coach and mentor for those who are wanting to become spiritual coaches and get educated and equipped with the tools to support other people in their spiritual transformations and journeys. And you're also an incredible musical artist, which I have been jamming out to your music, and your single, My Body is an Altar, is so fun. So you're just a woman of many talents and many trades, and I'm excited to share a conversation with you. So thank you for being here.
Wow. I'm just moved by that introduction. It's so cool to think, I started my podcast in 2017. So 2018, I was like a year in doing it on my $16 mic, no video, just, looking out the window, just talking on spirituality, which, by the way, wasn't even my career. My career was more about Ayurveda, health, wellness, but I just loved spirituality that I'm like, I need a place to talk about this. And it's just so cool to see one person on the other side, and it just implant to you that it is possible for me to also start a podcast, which eventually you did, and then the ripple effects. And it's just so real that sometimes we don't even realize the spiritual guidance that we receive, it's not just for us, but it's for all of the people that we impact.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you don't follow your own intuitive nudges, you don't pick up the breadcrumbs universe spirit's leaving for you, then who knows, how those pieces would have fallen into place for me, because I definitely was one of those people that was impacted by you living your own Dharma and following your own truth. And so that ripple effect goes on and on and on. And I don't think we ever can fully, maybe when we, leave this realm, but I don't know if we'll ever be able to measure or quantify the impact that we have. And I know specifically that you have had on millions of people's lives. The downloads speak for themselves. The data speaks for themselves. Your audience loves you. And there's so many reasons why you're so relatable, and you're fun, and you're funny, and you're quirky, and you're powerful. And you've just you're a dynamic woman. And for me, as someone who, you were a reference point for me. You're like, oh, if she can do it, I can too. And that's what's so powerful is just be you, embodying and being your highest self gives other people permission to step into that level of power and authority over their own lives and what they want to create, and own that for themselves. And so just want
to. Next time a guy does not text me back, I am going to play this podcast and listen to everything you just said. Be like, that's who the fuck I am. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Girl. So just tell people, for those who may or may not know you, if they're stumbling onto this show for the first time and you're new to them, how do you identify? Who is Sahara Rose today, as it is November 1st, 2024? what's alive in you, and who is the woman that I'm talking with right now? What do we need to know about your past to understand who you are right now?
Yeah. So ancient soul, modern body, reincarnated here on this planet to share, ancient wisdom from Dharma, living your soul's purpose, to the divine feminine embodiment, and really showing people that spirituality is not about like ascending and, reaching just the Pleiadian starseed galaxy, but like rather it is about being here in our bodies and our hearts and our wombs and the muck and the uncertainty and the unknown. The unknown has been my greatest motherfucking teacher. Like, damn, like, my journey has brought me from, living in India in a $2 a night hut, not knowing how I was going to make it, literally with rats in it, my family disowning me, going through really big health challenges, my body going through perimenopause when I was 21 years old, doctors telling me I would be on tons of prescription medications, which brought me on this journey of just self-healing, needing to figure out, I wanted to be an international human rights lawyer and save the world. But it was like, oh no, girl, you're going to learn how to heal yourself first. And that was the first iteration of my journey, my health, my wellness, which I feel for a lot of people is like their entry point into spirituality, because it just makes you realize, oh, when I eat this, I feel this, or, when I think that, I feel this. And so that journey of self-healing through Ayurveda, eventually re-getting my period back, really taught me about the mind-body connection. And then on a deeper level, I realized that my health challenges were related to that I was not in touch with the deeper part of my soul. And that oftentimes these are symptoms that are like saying, hey, look at me, pay attention. And I was really looking for everyone outside of me around my purpose. And I needed to really go inward. So that became my journey of like, do I even have a purpose? Like, is it maybe these health challenges happened for me for a reason, because I'm meant to share what I've learned and help other people heal. So that brought me on a journey of trying to write an Ayurveda book, getting rejected by 30 publishers, not knowing if it was ever going to make it, but that inner voice in me, just knowing that I was meant to do this, but not sure how. Eventually writing that book, and we can get into any of these stories that you want, walking up to Deepak Chopra at a conference, him writing the foreword of my book, which many, many, many breakdowns in between then. And eventually publishing this book and just putting everything I can into learning how to get a book out there. And, I didn't even have a podcast at that time. So that was my first book, Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, went on to produce a number of other books. But the question I kept getting was, how did you go from broke, living in a $2 a night hut, disowned by your family, breakup, rock bottom, to getting a book deal, Deepak Chopra writing the forward? Like, what shifted in you? And so I started to get really curious and kind of reverse engineered that of like, what did I realize? Because that was a huge shift in like a year's time.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the book, Discover Your Dharma.
Yeah. So can you give us the cliff notes for those who haven't read them? I mean, go get the book.
Well, where shall we get started, girlfriend?
That piece around, I mean, so many people are staring down the barrel of a life that they don't want to be living, and there are a lot of people who listen to this show who've made that transition already and who are on a path of self-discovery and awakening to that intuitive soul calling, like giving up the kind of the idea of themselves and what they thought their life was going to be like. I don't know anybody who's come on the show ever. And I don't know if I've met somebody that's living a life that they thought they were going to live. Like, it's like you said, the unknown has been your greatest teacher. And there have been so many things that have probably popped up that has taken you in different directions, and you've either rolled with it or you resist it. And both of those things can be a teacher. But what would you say for you making that an early transition from, being down in the dumps to having the guts to walk up to Deepak Chopra and say, like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and ask for your, like, speak your need and your desire? What flip switched in you?
So let's start with the 5 stages of Dharma discovery, because it's not like a one thing, but rather it's sequential. And by the way, these stages forever, spiral in our lives. So the first stage is even realizing that you have a Dharma. Now, I'm going to use this word Dharma a lot. And what it really means, it's your soul's purpose. It's the big reason why you are here. And it's not just what you do. It's not just your job, project, career, but rather it's who you are in action. So your Dharma in the Vedas. So Vedas are the text that yoga comes from, astrology, Jyotish astrology, these ancient Indian texts. The word Veda means knowledge of life. So in the Vedas, they wrote that the universe is this jigsaw puzzle, and every single person is one unique piece of that jigsaw puzzle. And when we find our greater role in this dynamic tapestry of life, we receive so much universal support because we're doing what we're meant to do. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have still obstacles and hardships. We do, but it's like in our soul, we know, and I know you know what I'm talking about, that me going through this obstacle and through this hardship is going to bring me closer to that thing that I know I need to embody. Yeah. Right. And for everyone, it's so different and so unique. So for one person, one of my things I'm really trying to embody more of is patience. And so the universe keeps putting me in these situations where I'm out of control of the timeline, where I want this thing, but I don't know when I'm going to get this thing. So I have to trust, flow, surrender, let go. Trust, flow, surrender, let go. Trust, flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. That was my first song. And that was just an affirmation I had to tell myself again and again and again. And Spirit keeps putting me into that same exact mystery school because apparently there's still more for me to learn here. So whatever that lesson is for you, which by the way, they change throughout our lives, because once you master a lesson, the universe is like, okay, and here's what's next. So when we realize this, that we're actually in this game, and it's not like a game like, oh, they're playing us, but like, it's in the Vedas, we call it the Leela. It's like a play, like it's like theater. Like we are here as characters, like our souls. Just try this on for size. Just imagine if your soul chose your body, your face, your personality, your birthday, your parents, where you were born, the obstacles you had to overcome uniquely in that family. So my soul chose to be born by a mother who is a refugee and a father who is an immigrant who fled from Iran. My dad, extremely narcissistic, angry, volatile. My mom, very much the wife who was doing the right thing, but like never really got to understand her own purpose. Yeah. So why would my soul choose that? Those have nothing to do with what I want to do, right? Well, what a perfect school for me to go to have a narcissistic father who is angry and volatile, because then I became very empathic. I could tell by the way he walked up the stairs what kind of mood he'd be in. And also I learned how to stand up for myself against someone that I was really wanted him to like me, but also was like, you will not speak to my mom like this. And that's what gave me courage. Why would I choose a mother like that? Well, I got to see firsthand what it's like to have someone who completely provides for you financially, but is not there for you emotionally. And that's not what I want. So we often choose parents that show us things that we don't want in life. And the way that we have to become to be in their environment is the unique teaching that we need. How perfect. We can even look at our grandparents. How are you a combination of your father's father? If you can think of like one thing about him that you know of, how do you have some of his gifts? Maybe he was an amazing businessman. Maybe he was very disciplined. Maybe he was a leader. What about your father's mother? Maybe she was very funny or carefree or nurturing. Your mother's father, how do you have some of his gifts? Yeah. Your mother's mother, how do you have some of hers? So when we start to realize this, we're starting to open up our consciousness. And when I say the word consciousness, it's like the quality of our thoughts. It's like where our thoughts are coming from. So as we're opening up our consciousness, we're starting to realize like nothing is random. Nothing is random in this universe. There are no such thing as coincidences. The fact that you are here right now listening to this podcast is for a very specific reason. I don't know why you chose this one. I don't think it was because of Tori's impeccable title choosing, though I'm sure it's great. But something in your soul said, this is the podcast I need to listen to right now. And you might not know it. You might have a million things going on, but right now you're paying attention. And that is your soul nudging to you through me, but to you, because God uses one another to show God's word. And when I say God, use universe, use source, whatever word that you want. But spirit is working through all of us. So when we start to notice this, when we start to realize if everything is divinely orchestrated, if there's a cause and effect to everything in the universe, if even the situations I'm in that I don't want are teaching me who I'm becoming, and nothing is random, and I was born for a reason, then maybe I have a purpose. And so that's stage one.
I love that.
And a lot of people don't get to stage one, FYI. And if you're here and you're listening, congratulations, you've already just made it there. But stage one is realizing that you have a purpose.
Yeah.
Now, what do we do with that? Well, we're like, shit, I have a purpose. I might not know what it is, but there is something spirit put me on this planet to do, something it's teaching me, something that I'm being used for. So let me start to improve myself. Let me stop drinking and smoking. Let me start eating a little healthier. Let me start going to the gym. Let me start, meditating. Let me start, biohacking, whatever the thing is for you. We go on a journey of stage 2 self-improvement, improving the body, improving the mind, because these are vessels for our consciousness. If I'm eating junk food all the time and smoking cigarettes, I'm not going to really achieve my highest self, right? So it's like these things need to dissipate. So that's where most of the self-help space is at. It's on the self-improvement stage. But again, this is just stage 2 of 5. So then we start to realize we're doing all the affirmations, we're doing the healthy green juices, we're, doing all the things. And we realize that maybe I am not a mind or a body to improve, but rather I am a soul to know. And maybe nothing was ever wrong with me, but rather I just didn't know me. And so instead of trying to just improve myself, I'm going to switch my focus to getting to know myself.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to stage 3, spiritual awakening. A lot of you guys listening may be here. Who am I? What is this? What's going on here? What's my human design and my gene keys and my numerology and my astrology? And don't forget about my Vedic astrology and my Mayan astrology. And let me understand who I am in this lifetime, my childhood, my past lives and ancestral lineage. And, just go down the Disney world of the spiritual growth journey, which, by the way, has got lots of twists and turns in it. So spiritual awakening, it's like, holy shit, how did I not know all of this? Like, it's a whole new world. But then the shadow of it is you can get lost in the sauce. You might be like, oh, like I still don't know this, or I still am not that, or I still, and almost use it to like negate the responsibility of just like doing, right?
Yes.
I'm not ready. And there can also be a us versus them as well. Like we got to wake up the sheeple.
Yeah.
So it is a stage, like I see in the spiritual awakening, it's like you dress spiritual, you talk spiritual, you go to ecstatic dance, you can't understand the people who are still muggles. It can be that, and it's a part of it. I was like that too, girl, in Bali, 23 years old, like deep in that. But then eventually you realize that this is just another identity that we're all creating. It's another label that we're all creating. And ultimately, it's not about me knowing about all the spiritual things, but rather it's about like, who am I and what am I meant to develop and become? So we start to find what really sticks to us, what tools and practices work for us, but also we start to learn more about who we are and what we want to do. Maybe it's arts, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's events planning, maybe it's, accounting, or maybe it's spirituality or writing or psychology, or it could be anything. But instead of trying to dabble in everything, we start to really develop and dive in. And that brings us to stage 4, Dharma development. So this is when I'm really devoting myself to the study, to the learning, to the mastery of something. Now, a lot of people in the coaching space today or social media space today skip this because we all want to be the experts like yesterday, and what happens is we're like, okay, fuck, human design's trending, all white, photo shoot with crystals. Let's go. And you do that. And then you're like, damn, why is no one, buying my sessions? And it's like, well, because last week you were all brown, ancestral healing, drinking cacao, and everyone is confused who you are, and honestly, not even taking the time to learn because everyone's just focusing on their own stories. So I say this because I'm so grateful I got rejected by 30 publishers when I was trying to write my book. Do you know why? Because I was trying to come up with my unique approach to Ayurveda from the get-go, and Spirit said, you are going to write a 450-page Ayurvedic textbook in the idiot's guide tone and like do it exactly the way that Ayurveda has been passed down for tens of thousands of years and master that way before now I'm adding your own unique spin to things, which eventually I added my own unique spin to things. But I needed to do my PhD. I needed to sit. I needed to learn. I needed to say, I needed to be fucking humble. And that's the thing that people are missing today. You know, it's like, yeah, we are all the things, we can do everything, but like learn the way that things are the way that they are, especially when it comes to spirituality, because we don't know, you know, it's like playing with a Ouija board. You know, you don't really know where shit's going to pop up.
Yeah.
Right. So Dharma development is really about studying, learning, like, and not doing everything, but really diving deep into one thing. And that takes time. That takes years.
Yeah. Mastery.
And through that, through the true mastery of something, you start to genuinely realize the wholes or genuinely realize the connections. So through my deep, I lived in India for 2 years studying Ayurveda, then spent multiple years, 7 years as a one-on-one Ayurvedic practitioner. Through many years of doing this practice, I started to realize, very interesting, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, it's related. I started to realize, why are mushrooms not allowed? What was happening in India? British rule, they don't want psychedelic mushrooms. I started to notice all of these things from deep study. And this is what happens when we study something. We start to like have our unique way of saying things, our unique spin on things. We're bringing together, maybe I've studied breath work and Reiki. What's the combination here with my unique demographic and the way that I see the world? And it's like all coming together. And in that moment, it's like all of these different sides of you are coming together and you're starting to create something that's never existed before, which does not mean it needs to be a new business. I want to say that living your Dharma does not mean everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. For many, many people, you will feel so much more supported and shiny by being part of a team. I'm being honest. But even in that team, you can be doing your Dharma fully. By you sharing your magic sauce with the world, by you doing the thing that you do best, right? Like in my team at Highest Self Institute, where I train Dharma coaches, I've trained over 3,000 people in this Dharma discovery method. They all have their unique practices and businesses. Not two businesses are identical. The Dharma discovery method is the same. It's these teachings, but everyone, one woman is a single mom. She's working with single moms. She uses certain jargon. One woman works with tech. She talks about, you know, re-downloading new software into your consciousness. Like everyone has their own unique way of saying things. And that's the beauty of living your Dharma is like ultimately at the highest level, what I realized is that all of our Dharmas are the same. We are all here to raise consciousness, but it's just, how are we going to do it? Like what Power Ranger color are you going to be? And that is what living your Dharma is about. So stage 5 is Dharma embodiment. And really that is when the inner and outer you are the same. You know, you're not going to a job and wearing a mask and playing a role that you're not and then coming back, but rather you are the most you in what you do. And by the way, in Dharma embodiment, what happens is everything in your life that is not in full integrity falls away. Relationships, friendships, homes, thought patterns, like they become so painfully discomforting. It's like that little pea in the bottom of the 10,000 mattresses. Remember that little story? It's like that pea is like, oh my God, like, wow. Like I used to be able to roll with this relationship and pretend I'm okay with it. And now it is so jarringly uncomfortable to be here that I need to make a change. And
like the thorn in your side.
That is what happens in Dharma discovery. You know, for me, it led to deep in my spiritual journey already, having written this book, it led to me getting divorced and finding out about infidelity. And, you know, it's the kind of things that living your Dharma, it actually becomes this shining light on all areas of your life, seen or unseen, that are untrue. So I always say like the spiritual journey is not for the faint of heart. You know, it's like it's going to make you become more alive, more joy, more bliss, more love, more freedom, more liberation. But you got to go into the pain and the shadows and the darkness and the grief and the suffering. And you just like feel more full spectrum. And then then when you know you can go into your pain and come out and be okay, you're not so afraid of it anymore. Whereas most people spend their entire lives just trying not to go there because they feel like if they ever feel their pain, they'll never get out of it. But what living your Dharma does is it connects you to something so much greater that you're like, oh, my pain was not in vain, but rather it amplified and even deepened my purpose.
love everything you just laid out. I mean, you articulated all of those stages beautifully. And what came to mind as you were just saying, what you just finished saying was like, it's almost like this spectrum that the way it like shows itself to me is like a spectrum of going from like delusion and illusion to truth. It's like, the closer we get to our Dharma and embodying our Dharma, like you said, all the things that aren't aligned with truth just have to like it's like cutting all the fat. It's like clearing the channel more and more and more. And you see it in relationships, and then you see it with food, and then you see it with what you're consuming in every aspect of your life. It's like, if my Dharma is to be a clear channel to help channel the highest vibrations of love, to help awaken and to raise consciousness on the planet in my unique way and through my unique expression. How do I clean out anything that prevents that from flowing? And that process is like...
And I want to give a little like asterisk here.
Yes, please.
Because something I've just learned is like, when it comes to relationships, it doesn't mean, oh, this relationship is not serving me. You're not 100% in support and service of me. You got to go. Mm-hmm. Does not mean that. Does not mean that at all. It means having the uncomfortable conversations, you know, because no relationship is going to be perfect. And the further I go along this journey, it's like the realer that gets. Yeah. But rather it is about, can we sit and actually speak the part of ourselves that feel like they're going to get rejected, that feel like if I say this and bring this to the table, you're not going to want to be with me. Or if I say this relationship might actually dissolve. It doesn't mean that person or you need to change at all. But if you can actually have a relationship where that is present on the table, that is so supportive of your Dharma, because your relationship is such a mirror of that. So I wanted to share that because I do feel there is this big shadow in the spiritual community of looking for the perfect, like Jason Momoa man who's like done all the plant medicine, and he's got like long Viking hair, and he's like healed all his shadows, and he's like ready to fully claim you. And, you know, I've had to be majorly humbled in that, because that's a fantasy as well. Right.
And we pedestaled that, and we're like, that's what we're chasing, and thinking that will be this perfect puzzle piece that fits into place, that if only, and it's like, oh, well, we're just waiting for that thing to come in, versus working with the clay that's in front of, you know what I mean? The clay that's in front of us, and not saying just like work with any old fucking clay and make it into something beautiful, but like don't be in the illusion of perfection. Yeah. Essentially that, constantly
perfection
waiting.
In relationships, perfection in your Dharma. Like a lot of people, another shadow I see is they're like waiting to find their Dharma. They're waiting to find their purpose. So they're not taking action in anything.
Yeah.
And then they're like opportunities are coming to them. Someone's like, oh, can you help me with my social media? And they're really good with social media. They're like, oh no, I don't want to be a social media manager. I want to be a social media pop star, you know? But it's like, maybe you being a social media manager would have taught you a lot of things that could have amplified your career as a social media pop star, or maybe it would have taught you that you actually don't even want to be a social media pop star, you know? So I do feel we need to detach ourselves from these wants so much, because those wants are based on our limited awareness of what we know right now, right? Imagine if you actually manifested everything you've called in every new moon ever. Like, girl, like your life would be shit right now. Yeah. It's like certain things we're not meant to have, certain things we're not ready for, certain things we think we want because of how we think it will make us feel, but it's not actually that. So I do believe it's around, we can have those desires, be energized by them, but now pay attention to what's showing up in my path right now, because that is actually my spiritual lesson.
Yeah, I love that. It's like what's happening, what's in front of you is the thing that you need to be experiencing, because that's what you're experiencing, versus, oh no, this must not be it. It's in the future. It's out there. I'm waiting for it to arrive. It's like, no, bitch, it's right here in front of you. Just pay attention.
And some things you got to just try them to know. Yeah. I think we were just like, oh, but that's not for me. I don't want to work that job. I don't want to date that person. I don't want to this. And it's like some things you got to actually just, even if you don't know, you're like, this isn't what I thought I wanted. I did not want to write the Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda at all. Like I had to write a brand new textbook start to finish. I wanted to make my book happen. And now I had 2 months to write a brand new 450 page book and barely get paid for it. But something within me was like, Sahara, this might be the only book you write in this lifetime. And that's it. So just take this opportunity right now and put everything you can into it. And it was hard. I had to write it in someone else's tone and voice. And, you know, really like, I didn't see anyone for months. I was just writing and writing and writing and writing. Had I not written that book, Deepak Chopra would not have written the foreword. So it's like certain things we think we're being punished. It's not what we want, but it's like, if it's showing up in our field right now, it's the divine preparation. Certain things, it's like, you know, when I was living in Bali, I was the assistant for this shaman, you know, just so I could help her with her retreats to be able to go on the retreat, you know, and then that's how I learned how to DJ. So it's like, I just feel we all need to just like take a step back and really come back to humility of like, do you know what the practice is in the Buddhist monasteries? Sweeping the floors. We got to learn how to sweep the floors. And I know it's not sexy. I know people don't want to hear it, but it is the thing that really is, it's like the cheat code to actually get what we really want in life, which by the way, is not what we think we want.
Talk to me more about that. What we really want is not what we think we want.
Well, what is something you want, Tori?
Ease.
Okay. What would a life that was just complete ease, what would that be like for you?
What comes to mind is a lack of pressure that I feel. Yeah, at times in different areas of my life for different reasons. But yeah, what I want is like no stress. Yeah.
So what would your day be like, this day of complete ease, lack of pressure, no stress?
A feeling of a deep level of security. That my needs are taken care of, that I can creatively express and in whatever way feels natural and in my highest excitement, that I can serve from a place of deep level of presence where I'm not having to jump into the future to plan and control and strategize a way to be safe in the future. I can just feel safe now and just be in the moment in a relaxed, open posture with life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, it sounds like you really want ease to further creatively express because of the stability that you feel would be conducive for you to be able to do that. So I'm curious for you, you're creatively expressing. What prompted you to do this?
I mean, similar to you in the sense that I had a life that I didn't want anymore. For me, I started doing what I do and started this show as a way to bottle up conversations for my own healing that were supportive for me, because I was a sponge at the time of wanting to soak in the information and inspiration that would continue to fuel and stoke the fire that was coming alive in me, to continue to follow my curiosity of asking these questions about who am I and why am I here and what am I meant to do and how can I do that in a way. So all of this is a byproduct of my pain and the tools that have helped relieve me of that pain, essentially.
So it sounds like this podcast was really created because of the pain that you experienced of not feeling, expressed in your life.
Yeah, feeling disconnected.
So would you say pain has been a big catalyst for you?
Huge teacher. Yeah, one of my best.
Teacher.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue to grow in this lifetime?
Absolutely.
So wouldn't it be really interesting if you never experienced pain again?
Right.
And it's been your biggest catalyst. But you don't want to experience pain again because that sucked. Though it led to everything you ever wanted.
Yeah. So like, how can I'm trying to divorce pain from like, can I learn in another way? Can I learn through love instead of pain?
Can I not have the human experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Sign me up for Palladium. Isn't it funny? I think this ease thing is a big stage we all go through, of like, I just want to learn through ease. It's like, bitch, when have you ever learned anything from ease? It's like, we learn from pain as humans. We do. We learn when the shoe is so uncomfortable that we need to change the shoe. The difference is when we become more aware is we don't need to basically amputate our left toe to realize that the shoe is not working for us. I remember I got these Ferragamo flats and I was very excited about them. They were definitely too small, but they were like 50% off. So I was going to make it work. And I got these flats I knew from the get-go, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put those like pads in it and we're going to be totally cool. So I was like walking around wearing them and I could already feel the blister popping, but I'm like, you know what? New shoes, blisters, that's just part of the process. They're Italian. They say you just got to like blister it out and they'll open up in time. And so I'm walking around wearing these shoes and my toe starts bleeding on the Ferragamo. I'm like, blood, get away from these gorgeous shoes. And I keep trying to wear these shoes and keep trying to wear these shoes. I'm keep trying to make these shoes happen. And eventually the pain was just so bad that I was just like, I can't wear these shoes. So when we're not on our spiritual journeys, we require that level of pain for us to change. When we are in our spiritual journeys, we can try on the shoe and say, this doesn't fit, even though it's 50% off, I'm not going to take it.
Yeah.
Is that ease? Not really. It's awareness.
For sure.
This idea that life can always be easy is like signing up to be a blob. Like, for life, I've sat with this a lot.
Yeah.
I've been to Abraham Hicks Live. Like, trust me, I've been down this and I've keep coming back to time and time again, coaching thousands of people, hearing so many stories is pain, discomfort. It's always our catalyst.
For sure.
But what we can change is how we feel within the pain, to not resist the pain, to find ease and spaciousness within the pain. Because it's going to be there no matter what. But instead of, why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. I must be on the wrong path if this is happening. Instead, to surrender into the pain. It's like when you're getting tattooed. It's like a lot of people love that feeling because you're surrendering into that moment. You're choosing that moment. And with pain, we don't always choose the moment. We definitely don't. But to surrender into, there's a greater intelligence that's happening right now that I don't totally understand. And even though this is not what my conscious mind would ever choose, even though this feels like the very block that's preventing me from having the thing that I want, this is the exact school that Spirit has put me into. And so I'm going to lean in and exhale as much into that pain. And I'm also going to visit the bottom of this pain because we manifest painful experiences in life as a tipping point for us to feel all of the deeply embedded pain within ourselves. To really like when you've touched the bottom barrel of your pain, like you've cried and cried and cried and you got to the base of your pain, it's like this freedom that happens of like, there's nothing left to hide. Like there's nowhere to run. Like this is my pain and this will always be here. And this pain is my friend and every single person carries it.
Yeah.
There is no escaping of life from it.
Yeah.
Even if you have all the money in the world or you live in Jamaica on a beach and are a Rastafarian smoking weed or whatever you think could be the experience that will alleviate you from having pain in this lifetime, go there and talk to those people because they're in pain too.
For sure.
But
such a good reminder.
Pain is so sacred. The darkness is where all life comes from. I wouldn't be here had I not deeply immersed myself in the mystery of my pain, and Spirit kept dunking my face back in until I was just like, oh my God, I love these waters. Thank you for these waters. And again, do I want pain? No, but I know that everything I want, the expansion that I want is only on the other side of my pain. So maybe the ease is really to be in ease with the full spectrum of life.
Yeah, I think the ease is there's so much. First of all, thank you for that reflection. So much I love about what you just said, and I deeply resonate with and have experienced. There's a couple things that come up and things I think people listening might be wondering. So I'd like you to go deeper into a couple of things. One is I think you sort of alluded to it, but the difference between pain and suffering. The suffering is the, cutting off the toe or the bleeding in the shoe, or we could just recognize that it's painful when we walk in it and we don't overdo it. But so kind of understanding that pain is inevitable in life, it's something we can't escape. It's part of the process. So the more that we can befriend it and get to know it and make peace with it. And I've said this on the show many times, like pain's not the enemy. Not learning the lesson that the pain came to teach you is the enemy, essentially. Like pain as a teacher, it's coming with a message for you that something's wrong or something needs to be looked at. And so pay attention. It's showing you where to pay attention. So when I say ease, I think there's part of me, and I think other people might relate to this, is how do I not buy into a belief that everything has to be hard? That everything has to be painful, right? How can I embrace and make space and room for the other spectrum where maybe all I've known is pain and I want to now call in joy and abundance and love and all of these other things that may have been scarce in my experience. And like you said, open my capacity to be with the full spectrum of the experience of experiences versus a siloed aspect of that. And then how do I then ultimately not be afraid of all of the beauty, the love, the joy, the pleasure, if I know the opposite of that coin is pain? If pleasure, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm afraid to feel my pleasure because I know pain is inevitable, right?
Yeah. So let's break down some of what you shared. So let's say, we'll give this person a name or to the person listening who might feel this. And I used to feel this exact same way. So I completely understand it of like, oh my, like, I don't want to keep learning from pain. I want to learn from ease. I want to learn from joy. And then Spirit put me in a really painful situation to learn that I actually never really experienced true pain before that. So first of all, it's not, why does it always have to be so painful? Why is everything so painful? No one's life is always painful. Never everything is painful. Because if everything was painful, that would actually become your baseline. Because there are people who are in war zones right now whose best day of their life would not even be your worst day of your life.
Yeah.
So our baseline of what we consider pain or not is completely relative to us and subjective. What we think we deserve, and what we see around us, which is also very skewed from highlight reels of social media. So we're always thinking, oh, why aren't I in Maldives having a fruit plate in water? It's like even that moment was probably not so joyous for that person because they were trying to get the right shot, So no one's life is always painful. And so let's all like acknowledge that within ourselves, right? Most people have never actually felt their pain. Most people are living in this numbness. They're living in this avoidance. They're living in this, I'm uncomfortable, I'm anxious, I feel like something needs to change, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, there's like a dullness.
And like awaiting for something to happen, but I don't even really know what it is. That is where most people live. If you're lucky, Spirit will give you an opportunity to experience the depth of true pain.
Yeah.
For me, it was learning about the infidelity in my marriage. For someone else, it could be a grave health challenge. For someone else, it could be homelessness. For someone else, it could be when you really go there. And by the way, not everyone has those things and experiences the depth of the pain. When you allow yourself to go and really feel into all of the pain and the sadness and the grief that I hold inside of myself that I've never felt from my childhood, from my ancestors, from all of the words unspoken, and you really feel into all of it, which by the way is the most courageous thing that we can do. And it's not a one-time thing. It's like layers.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. It's like you might have worked through some of this lifetime or like stuff. Then there's layers. There's more. It's like you can keep going.
There's layers. But what happens is you start to learn how to scuba dive. You're not afraid of going deep anymore. I used to be like, oh my God, why is everyone so obsessed with shadow work? I don't get it. Love and light. Like, it's just like, oh, now I see why, because it is only through going through those things that you can have true, genuine joy. And then even when you're in those things, it's not as heavy, it's not as scary. So you're not so like, oh my God, things are really amazing. There might be pain on the other side, but rather, oh, I'm good friends with my pain. I know my pain. We're homies, you know, like,
you
know,
hold
it's
it
like
more
certain
lightly.
people, it's like, you could tell, like, have you been to hell? Like there's a certain like aliveness that happens. It's like, oh, you've been to hell too. What's up? I made the roadmap of hell actually. And so there's a certain, I don't give a fuck, je ne sais quoi that happens when you've been there that actually makes you become so radiantly alive that you can't bypass that. So then what happens is it's no longer this subjective, I don't want to feel pain. It's the fear of feeling pain that's actually causing the pain. If everyone just went in and felt the fucking pain, they're like, oh yeah, this is pain. This is sadness. This is anger. And this is joy. And this is happiness. And, you know, all the little emotions like that Disney Pixar movie that's very cute.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what it is. It's a really, in and out.
Inside Out.
Inside Out, yeah. You start to make friends with them. So I share this because you can still learn lessons from masturbating. You can learn lessons from laughing with your friends. You can learn lessons from staring into a rose. You can learn lessons from so many things. I learn lessons from all those things every single day. You know, I'm not looking for pain. I'm not hunting for pain. But if I'm avoiding pain, it will look for me.
What has your pain that you've been through most recently, maybe through the pain of your divorce, what has it taught you about your resilience?
Ooh, girls, this could be a whole podcast.
Sure.
I mean, the depths of pain have taught me so much of, first of all, how I was afraid of it, how I spent my whole life avoiding it, how I would create fantasies for myself of like, I really want this thing. So like, this is what it's going to be. And if I'm just going to imagine this thing happening, because if I only imagine it, then I'm going to manifest it. And if I think about anything bad that could potentially happen, well, then I'm going to manifest that. So let me not even think of it as a possibility. You know, I do think that this Abraham Hicks manifestation stuff can help you at the beginning of your journey, because if you're in shit thoughts all the time, it's like, yes, get into the vortex. And there's a truth to that. When you're in the vortex, you're feeling the flow, you're meeting people at the time, but it can only get you so far, because then it's like, we are a rainbow, and it's like to be like, well, I only want to stay in purple. We can't, we have to feel all of the rainbow. My pain taught me so much about my lineage, you know, so much about all the women in my lineage who have been abused, you know, cheated on, abandoned, used as a commodity, the womb as a commodity, let alone emotionally unavailable. It just showed me I didn't even know men could meet you. I had never seen that before. So it really just taught me a lot about that. It taught me a lot about self-love. That was a word that obviously I knew, but I didn't like truly know around like really touching yourself and stroking yourself and kissing your hand and like being your own best lover. It taught me so much around empathy, you know, that every single person is going through this pain, and to really just be with people on just such a deeper way. I mean, it changed, it made me into an artist. I would have never gone into making music had it not been for that. So many of the greatest gifts of my life. And also while I was in that pain, even though I had no evidence of it, I was like, because of this heartbreak, I will actually have the most heart-opening love that I've ever experienced because of this. I had no idea how. And I still don't.
This is your ticket. It's like saying this is your ticket into.
But I'm like, this is what the story is. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to be in the greatest love story of all time. It's happening. And this will be the very reason why, instead of the story that what most women take on is, I'm never going to trust again.
Right.
It's not safe for me to open my heart.
Totally.
I got, you know, I loved someone fully and I got played. I'm never going to do that again. I'm just going to use men for their money. I'm just, you know, all of the things that we say that media, even relationship coaches, et cetera, can perpetuate, you know? And I think the big thing I'm learning really right now is like unconditional love, you know, to love without attachment. You know, every time you love, you will never know how it's going to go, even if you marry that person. love is the greatest unknown, the greatest mystery. And what's the scariest, I think, about love is it's really reliant on two people simultaneously feeling the same way about each other, which is just kind of pockets you get.
Yeah.
You know, there's moments that you're feeling well, and then it will change again. And so I'm learning, I'm still sitting with that. It's like how, especially as women, like I do believe we're so attuned to love. Like that really is the great purpose of our lives, to live as love. But to tune into capital L love, universal love, spirit love, rather than the conditional love of relationship, because love is unconditional, but relationship is not.
Yeah.
And I feel that so many women, it's like our days are good if he's good and bad if he's bad. And like our security is so based on the state of the relationship, and makes total sense why biologically we have been wired to be this way. And so it's a dance that I'm still learning of, like, being open-hearted and like letting love in. And also like when you're like, so where's this going? And are we going to be together forever? And like that of like, snatch the cat back, like do your Dharma. And that's why I think living your Dharma is the greatest saving grace for women, because we can get so wrapped up in our emotions and like our entire days. Some days I'm just like, all I did was fucking feel my feelings all day long, you know? And it's like, sometimes it's like your Dharma is like almost like your inner masculine that like holds you down, connects you to something, gets you out of your story. And then you come back to it with like this higher point of view. Like I'm having so much fun on this podcast. I'm going to come back to my situations of life in a higher vibration than had I just stayed in them.
Yeah. I mean, that whole perspective of the fact that you can see that the worst heartbreak of your life will lead to, is the ticket to the greatest love story that's ever been told, is only possible because of your mentality around your soul purpose and Dharma anyway. It's like when we have a victim consciousness and victim mentality, we think it's happening to us, which then, you know, okay, as a byproduct of that, I'm separate and I'm disconnected. So I have to protect myself and I have to survive and I have to guard myself. And now I have all of these coping strategies for closure and constriction versus this open-hearted, oh, yes, this is painful. And the perspective that this is growing, this is like opening me and growing my capacity to feel love. And like, that's just such a different approach that I think and like mindset that, you know, of course, the Miracles would call that a miracle. It's a shift in perception, but it is ultimately where like our freedom lies in the ability to see that life is happening for you. And in the midst of that, it's like, are you kidding me? This is happening for me right now. Like I really like, oh, my soul signed up for this. You're like, this sucks so bad. And like, my soul chose this curriculum. And, you know, it's like, do you find yourself ever ping ponging? Because I do, like between really being in the 3D experience, like this is painful. And then like the zoom in on the thing that's causing me pain. And then the ability to zoom out and like see how all of this is playing out in a beautifully orchestrated divine tapestry of my life. And this is a small chapter in a big book. And I think a lot of us get so zoomed in on the thing that's causing us pain in the moment that we lose that greater perspective.
Absolutely. It's something that's an eternal battle, I feel, for all of us. And, you know, I remember I was in Peru, I sat with San Pedro, plant medicine. And, you know, I'm like, oh, it's so hard to be alone. I just want to be with my future husband. And I met my future children. I didn't even know I was going to have children. I like wanted to be with them so badly. And just like how difficult it was for me to be alone. And then I just zoomed out of my life. And it just showed me like, maybe 10 years from now when I'm a mother and my kids are like knocking on the bathroom door, like, and I'm like, damn, I used to have so much alone time.
Yes,
I would contemplate in the mountains about it, what I would do for a pocket of alone time right now, you know? And it's like that thing that we want, like you're starting a relationship and you're like, where's this going to go? He's not texting me back soon enough. It's like, girl, one day you're going to be like, can I get like a 1 month break from you? You know, like it's like we're always wanting what we don't have.
Exactly.
So it's like to remember that.
I was literally at the park the other day and I was reflecting on my season of singleness right now, and this like desire I have to find my partner and to have a family and to be a mother, and how true that is and how deep that sits in my body. And this recognition that like this too shall pass, like this season won't be here forever. So let me acknowledge and be in this moment. Yes, I can prepare myself and understand that there's something coming that I'm like excited to receive. And the only place I'm not there, like be here. And because there will be a moment I look back on this and be like, oh, I remember like when I had my freedom and had like didn't have kids asking for all of my attention and all of the things. So I think that perspective of our ability to see this moment in the grander scheme is a stepping stone to wherever, where the mystery unfolds and takes us. And, at the end of the day, like we don't know if we're going to get tomorrow. Like this is all that there is, this is really it. And what's ever showing up in our experience is the most sacred thing. What's here right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So good. There's so many things I could talk to you about, and we could get into a million topics. But as it relates to Dharma and people who are just finding that capital C courage, to continue to step into the unknown, to continue to take the road less traveled, to continue to go the depths and the dark places, to go into the caves that the treasure, is that we all seek really is inside of. Do you have any kind of final words of advice for people? And aside from that, last question is, in your current experience right now, in the current, situation of your life, I know you're about to move, you're moving across the globe back to the Middle East, which is beautiful. What are your current circumstances revealing about who you are becoming, like right now, what you feel like you're stepping into on your path?
I feel there is this big draw for me of like reconnecting back to the world and really becoming, that was always my intention. I started wanting to be an international human rights lawyer and like coming back to just impacting places that don't, have access to podcasts and Instagram and things like that. So I'm excited to be based in the Middle East and I'm going to be spending a month and a half in India as well, to spend more time in India and just to be of service. I love being of service here, but I'm like, how can I touch lives that don't have access to this work? So kind of just coming back to like my humanitarian roots is very alive for me. And, in terms of what advice I would give about courage is the universe is always speaking to you and is always guiding you and supporting you. And know that the words that you're meant to say will come through you. Like, it's not about getting it right. I think we're like, what do I say to this person? We're writing it down. It's like, just connect to your heart, connect to your belly, connect to your womb. And in that presence, trust that the right words will come through. And for some of us, our lesson is to have a little bit more patience and sit with something before speaking it. And for some of us, it's not holding on to it for so long and speaking it. So kind of know where that is for you. And just knowing that vulnerability ultimately is the thing that will guide you to what you want. First, vulnerability with yourself. I like to sometimes before I sleep of like, is there anything I'm not being totally truthful with myself right now? Any little lies I'm telling myself of like, oh yeah, this is going great, or oh this, and it's crazy how, they always say like, don't believe your thoughts. And I like never really understood that until like this past year, because especially as women, the feminine, we can get so swept up into how we feel in that moment and like take that one moment to be true, and it's like to just let the waves unfold and to zoom out, to come back to your breath, your womb, the body, take a walk. I always guide people through a womb meditation. And let yourself really listen from that space. One thing I did that is what led to me moving to the Middle East is a rose dieta. So I sat 10 days in silence working with the rose, drinking rose tinctures, rose tea, connecting to the spirit of the rose. And that was really what taught me the unpedaling of letting go of all of these things that I thought I needed. This apartment, living in LA, friends, this, that, of like, if you really want to reach your new chapter, what are you willing to let go of? Yeah. And I think a lot of us were like holding everything in our hands, my home, my identity, my friends, my this, my that. And I also want this thing that I don't have too. It's like, well, your hands are already full. So what are you willing to let go of?
Yeah.
So I know for my next chapter, I'm like, I desire true love. That's my greatest desire. And also to continue to expand my soul. Well, if I stay here in my comfort zone, you know, that's not the thing that's going to happen. So, you know, the word sacrifice is an intense word, and it's not a word that I've always loved, but I'm like, there is a level of sacrifice for the next level. Yeah. There is a level of letting go. And I think, you know, with my mantra, trust, flow, surrender, let go, letting go is the hardest part.
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, if something was a big part of your life, you'll have to let it go many, many times, you know, relationships, ways of being. But only when we let something totally go can we open up to the next version of what it is. So coming back to this ease is like, for me, nothing is wrong with my life here. I live a great life here. But when I got really, really, really quiet with myself, really, really honest with myself, the thing that I really deeply want most in life, am I doing that here? No. And so that is how you get to take steps through ease. Is it still hard to move? Yes. But I'm not waiting until something catastrophic happens here for me to leave, which definitely has happened in the past, you know? So that can only come from really taking a moment to be silent with yourself and to be honest of, are there any little lies I'm telling myself? Anyways, I'm not being truthful. And it doesn't mean you have to take action on that thing right now, but just to admit it to yourself.
I think that is mic drop. If we all implemented that, and that requires big time courage to be that honest and to look in that mirror and to peer into, you know, look at the truth and to not live in disillusion, to not live in denial, not to go to bed at night and talk ourselves into something or pretend that we're happy in certain areas or fulfilled in certain areas, or that certain things don't need our attention, that are asking for our attention. So I think as we, you know, continue to live our Dharma, it requires us to continue to be honest about what is what's calling us and what it's calling us to let go of. So thank you for being that example. Thank you for showing the way and leading with courage and leading with your heart. And I, you know, believe what you're seeking is seeking you. So who knows? I can't wait to hear how you find exactly what you're looking for, where you end up. So thank you for being here, and tell people where obviously they can find you online, what corner of the internet you would like them to connect with you on, and how they can know and follow your journey from here on out.
Totally. So thank you so much for having me, Tori. It was such a blast. I'm so grateful we got to dive into some just really present topics that I feel a lot of people listening will resonate. So the first place is the book, Discover Your Dharma, which you can get on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, wherever you get books. If you go on iamsahararose.com/Dharma, you can find a bunch of links. It's printed in a lot of different languages as well. You can take my quiz, dharmaarchetypequiz.com, DHARMA archetypequiz.com. And that will guide you to what are your Dharma archetypes. Are you the teacher, visionary, researcher, nurturer, entertainer, activist? We'll give you your top 2. And that's a really great place to start. And then I email you several days of tips. And then my podcast is Highest Self Podcast. So thank you again so much for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Welcome back anytime. You guys, if you loved this and you received something from the show, which I trust that you did, my request is that you go follow Sahara, follow her journey, listen to her show, and share this with a friend. I literally in my life took a whole new path because somebody shared one of her episodes with me, and it opened my mind and my heart to a whole new reality. And that's the gift that you can give somebody if you do the same. So that is my ask. And if you want to go above and beyond and really help this show grow, you can always leave a rating and review. That's the best way to say thank you from my heart to yours. Sending you so much love and courage this week as you continue to implement and step into the unknown and do the work. I love you. I'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast. See ya.